Taradini Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today is the appearance day of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur is very famous. We see that he is situated in our parampara pictures on the altar. Do we need a translation? If we look at the history of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, after the Goswamis, some years passed, a few hundred years passed, that we have Vishnu Chakravarti and Baladev Vidyabhusan appearing, both of whom made great contributions to the literature of our Sampradaya. And then after that, again, the next big appearance was Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And this, of course, is close to the modern era. And we see also that from Lord Caitanya's time to the present day, the society radically changed. When Lord Caitanya was there, the Muslims were dominating the country. Later on, the British came, and they conquered the whole of India. So it was at this period that Bhakti Vinod Thakur appeared. He was also educated in the British system, and so he got British education. But fortunately also, he had a very great interest in traditional culture. At that time in Bengal also, there was a little confusion about what to do, because there was a decline in traditional culture and a predominance of British and Western culture taking place, which influenced a lot of people because people were educated in that system. So it was within that type of environment that Bhakti Vinod Thakur was educated and grew up. But very fortunately, he was also able to understand that tradition was very valuable, and in spite of the influence of the British, he pursued his interest in studying Vedic literature. It was not immediately that he understood Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even though he was in Bengal and Lord Caitanya should have been very prominent. There were so many other things going on, and of course, as I said, the British influence was very strong also. So he wasn't really aware of the contribution of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then in one of his works, he mentions that then suddenly I discovered the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how they solved all the problems that were arising, because there were questions about history, Vedic history, how it operates, and principles of society under Vedic life, and then Vedic philosophy. And then on the other hand, there was the Western ideas of Western philosophy. And this created a great confusion. How are we going to consolidate everything together? So Bhakti Vinod Thakur, when he studied the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was able to understand that all philosophies and all social contradictions will be resolved by the teachings of Lord Caitanya. And so he became very excited to preach this. And so he began preaching and writing to try to educate people to the significance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And thus we see, he wrote many works to try to explain this. In some of these works, he takes the more traditional approach. Some things he wrote in Sanskrit. But in other works, of course, he wrote in Bengali because he understood not everybody in the modern world would understand Sanskrit. But he also wrote in English because many people were speaking English. And some of the works are in poetic form because people were traditionally, they would like verses, etc. So some are in Sanskrit verse, some are in Bengali verse. But then he also wrote works which were different from these types of works, that is, works which are more like, say, fictional, telling stories, which maybe he was inspired by the British education. So he wrote in story form to inspire people about the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of this is Prem Pradeep, a little work, and the other is Jaiva Dharma, a larger work, both of which are kind of a story in form. And so through these stories, he tries to impress upon people the importance of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. And of course, at this time, society was changing a lot. Mixture of cultures was there, and also things were modernized. Machines were there. So under the British, instead of palm leaf manuscripts, they had printing presses. So that knowledge could be distributed more widely. And so Bhakti Vinod Thakur took advantage of that, and he had his works printed and distributed everywhere. Apart from that, of course, he actually personally gave lectures and talks to people. So he did all of this in spite of the fact that he had to support a huge family of like 11 or 12 children or whatever. He worked as a magistrate for the British. But in spite of all that work, he still managed to lecture and write. And he very prolifically wrote so many works. Fortunately, all of these works are also not so difficult to understand. They are presented in simple language so that people can understand nicely. So in this way, he was introducing to the modern world the teachings of Lord Caitanya. One of his sons, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, continued this approach to utilize modern methods to propagate Lord Chaitanya's teachings. So he also took up the task of printing works and distributing things. And that became one of his major efforts. So he even purchased printing press and began printing in order to expand the teachings of Lord Caitanya to everybody. So both of them, Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, had a very wide vision of the movement of Lord Caitanya. They wanted it to spread everywhere. For that reason, Bhakti Vinod Thakur wrote some works in English, and somehow he managed to get them sent overseas. So they ended up in Britain and in Canada even, surprisingly. So in this way, somehow or other, he was trying to expand the teachings of Lord Caitanya beyond India and into other places. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also made this attempt. He sent preachers to England even. And he had a few disciples, I think German, some English and German disciples also. So this way, they both had a very broad vision of how to expand Lord Chaitanya's movement. This again was further taken up by Srila Prabhupada, who, inspired by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, began to preach in the Western world and make devotees there. And in this way we find that finally Lord Chaitanya's movement is permanently established all over the world. So it's a process of continual expansion from the time of Bhakti Vinod Thakur to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to Srila Prabhupada. And they've each contributed to expanding the teachings of Lord Caitanya to wider and wider audiences. Now that we have more modern facilities, then we have more opportunities to spread. In Srila Prabhupada's time, of course, he translated and made commentaries on Bhagavatam and other works. But how did he do it? There were no computers. So somebody had to type everything in the typewriter. At first he had to record it. He had a dictaphone. And so he didn't write. The first work he did, typewriter, little typewriter in New York for Bhagavad Gita. So that was very difficult to do. And in India again, typing or writing or whatever and publishing. So that's a very time-consuming process. Now we do have more advanced methods. We have computers, we have editing machines, we have so many different things, and even printing is much, much easier than it was even 20 years ago. So, in this way, we do have modern advantages. But these advantages are there simply so that we can more conveniently spread to wider and wider audiences. That's the whole purpose of all this. Otherwise, these things have not much value at all. So we can utilize whatever is given to us and adapt it to the modern world. Of course, the modern world is changing. Society is changing. The society that was there when Prabhupada was preaching is much different from the society now. And that Prabhupada society was much different from Bhakti Vinod society also. Everything keeps changing. And things change radically, and therefore we have to adapt our preaching to the people who were in the present, not in the past. And that's how we'll be able to expand the movement. So we should take the inspiration from Bhakti Vinod Thakur and how he assessed the situation at his time and then preached according to that mode. So he understood he was preaching to an audience. One of the audiences was educated through the British system of education, and they were familiar with all those Western concepts, etc. So he adapted his preaching for that and explained things in that way. But then again, we have other times where he's simply following a very more traditional method and preaching from that point of view. And in the meantime, of course, he utilized what was present, the printing press, etc., to permanently have a record of everything and also to distribute that to a wider audience. So that was continued by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who actually made a contribution by organizing a whole movement. He established an organization or a society to spread the whole movement. Prabhupada again took up that same method, and he also founded a society, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So rather than an informal group acting individually, he had a whole group of people working with common principles and common goals. And he felt that that was a more effective way of spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement. So all of these things are, we're going to say, inspirations for us, even in the modern day, to see how to expand into the future. So in remembering our past acharyas like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, we should also see their insight into how to preach and adapt that to the modern world that we're living in.
Samsaradavanalalidaloka Tranayakarinya ganagana tvam Samsaradavanalalidaloka Tranayakarinya ganagana tvam Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya Vande gurashi charanarvindam Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya Vande gurashi charanarvindam Mahaprabhu kirtana nitya gita Baditra madhyan manasarasena Mahaprabhu ki Romanchakampa shutaranga bajo Vande gurashi charanarvindam Romanchakampa Shivigraharadhana nityanana Shingaratan mandiramarjanada Shivigrahara dhananityanana Shingaratan Yuktasya bhaktan shaniyanjatopi Vande gurashi charanarvindam Yuktasya bhaktan Chaturvedashi bhagavat prasada Swadana triptan haribhakta sangha Chaturvedashi bhagavat prasada Swadana Kritaiva triptim bhajata sadaiva Vande gurashi charanarvindam Kritaiva triptim Shri Radhika Madhavayara para Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Nam Shri Radhika Madhavayara para Pratikshana svadanalulapasya Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Pratikshana svadanalulapasya Nikunjayo no rotikeli siddhai Yaya libiru aktirapekshani Nikunjayo no rotikeli siddhai Yaya libiru Tatra tidakshadati ballabhasya Vande Gurashi charanarvindam Tatra Vande Gurashi charanarvindam Shakshadaritvena samasta shastra Uktastata bhavate vasadvi Shakshadaritvena Uktastata bhavate vasadvi Kintu prabhurya priyeva tasya Vande Gurashi charanarvindam Kintu prabhurya Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasada Esya prasada nagati kutopi Esya prasada bhagavat prasada Esya prasada nagati kutopi Dayanstu vantaisya yashastri sandhyam Vande Gurashi charanarvindam Dayanstu vantaisya Dayanstu vantaisya yashastri sandhyam Vande Gurashi charanarvindam Dayanstu vantaisya yashastri sandhyam Vande Gurashi charana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada